So, hello, React Knowledgeable. And the first time sharing remotely feels a bit strange. So there's no feedback, no whatever. But yeah, let me just start. uh, I think before my shares my screen, I just want to. It's just such a coincidence. I think last time when I shared in React Knowledgeable, the topic was why another framework, and yet this time I'm talking about another framework. But this
Another
time,
framework.
yes, but this time it's about the Preact. So Jimbo, do you know what is? Yeah, tell me what is Preact.
Smaller React.
Okay, smaller React. Okay, let me share my screen. Yeah, I think in case whoever doesn't know what is Preact, so I just go to their website. So it is advertised as a faster 3K alternative to React with the same modern API. So yeah, so basically it's like a mini version of a React. Um, we recently started a new project and it started targeting mobile. So we are thinking, why not give this a try? Because we all know React is not small, and this one looks quite promising. Maybe we can provide a better performance to our users. So yeah, we decided to give Preact a try. So I think the key part we really worry about is that although it's advertised as a React alternative, but it's just 3K, kind of really covers all the current use cases of React. Will we hit any special edge cases? So that's our biggest concern before we decide to use Preact for this new project. And fortunately or unfortunately, yeah, we already met once.
Oh, only one.
No, actually, they are small. So I'll share this one first, and in the end, I can share with you another one. We just find out maybe this week.
Wow, another one.
Yes,
Cool.
another one.
That's amazing. Like for our complicated use case, so we found only two incompatible cases.
Yeah, I would say it's already a pretty decent job considering they only use 3K to replace. I think React is probably 30 KBs, something like that. Yeah, I think without the more delay, let me just show you the bug we encountered, and it's quite interesting. All right, so let me share the code. Can you see my code?
I can see your code.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, let me explain my setup first. I think it's quite typical. So imagine in a project, you have a page. Typically your page is a class component, and you have some method. I imagine now let me just comment now this one. You decide to render your page. So the page is pretty simple. You just render one header, which is example page. So yeah, if you switch to this page and if you refresh, yeah, this is what you see. It's a bit boring, but yeah, you just see the example page. Pretty easy.
So do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, I think what makes this page a bit special is that do note that we somehow need to use this component will mount method. I know it's not suggested, but we're still using it. There are many reasons. For example, we need to run something both in client side and server side. And
yeah, makes sense.
You know, at server side, they will not call component did mount. So that we have to, yeah, basically we have to do something when the component will mount.
We just have to use that.
Yeah, so you see when now I render the page directly, it renders correctly. And you will see this, basically my component will mount method will be called properly. Yeah. So this will be the case if we render the page directly. Let me explain the complexities here. So by usually you imagine this is a big project. You definitely will not load the code of all your pages all at once. You apply some code splitting and you start to lazy load the part of the pages. So that's why I try to reproduce this behavior. So I create a component called the lazy page by utilizing the React lazy. Yeah, this part is a bit hard to understand, but you can just basically ignore it. It basically says that I will try to load my page and I will mimic this async behavior. So the page will be loaded after 1 second.
1 full second.
Yeah. And of course, the lazy will not be complete without a suspense. So I have to handle the fallback nicely. This one, I'm just doing something very simple. I just decide to render a loading indicator. Yeah, that's the fallback. So pretty easy setup. You have a suspense and you want to lazy load your page, and your page will be loaded after 1 sec. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how this one looks like now. Yeah, so you can focus on the left part first. I do a refresh, you see the loading, and then the page render. I do it again, you see the loading, and after loading, the page will be rendered. Basically, I think our lazy code splitting works well. All right, but yeah, there's a big part here. You see something missing? Yeah,
the crazy stuff is gone.
Yeah, the log is gone. I think let me just do a quick switch so that you understand the difference better. Yeah, in all the method, this unsafe component will mount, the function will be called. But once I switch to our new way, yeah, this function will not be called. Yeah, do you have any idea why?
So if we're doing data fetching in that function, that means no data is actually fetched. It's never called.
Yeah, so that's the tricky part. So I think it's not a very safe console, but it's more like some DOM manipulation or some API call. So in that case, the page will be incomplete.
So does it have something to do with like how we patch those events?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well, because this code is already very simple. I feel there's very rare chance that I did something wrong my code level, because it's just maybe less than 20 lines. And now my gut feeling is that there should be something wrong at the framework level.
Yeah, this time it must be the framework.
Yeah, I think it could be the framework. And I think the good part of using a library that is only 3 KB is that you can read the source code easily. Unlike a React, I have to search a huge code base. So yeah, so now actually I'm right inside the Preact code base. And yeah, I think I know the problem is that the unsafe method is not being called. So I'll just do a really stupid global search called unsafe. And it doesn't give me a lot of result. So I just ignore all the tests. So pretty much it just left me with one file. Yeah. So I just click into that file, and let's see how Preact is patching this unsafe method.
Oh, define property.
Yeah, so looks okay. So let me try to understand this. There's a function, so you're passing a proto. I assume this will be a component. So it says if your component already has this unsafe method, they will define a property on the component. So the key, I think, will be the one without the unsafe prefix. Meaning if you have unsafe component will mount, you will actually define a property called component will mount. But once you try to get it or set it, you actually set or get on that original unsafe property.
It's on this, right?
Yeah.
So that means this proto argument, could it be a prototype?
Not sure. Maybe we need to see where.
Let's try debugging.
Yeah, I think need to see where this is being used. Oh, I think, yeah, I think so it's being called here. Let's see what's this function. So this function is called a vnode function. So it's actually something called a vnode, and type is the type of vnode. So I assume in the React context, maybe the vnode is referring to something like a React element. So the type is actually the type. Yeah, I think it's okay. I think most likely is patching here. Maybe let's just set a breakpoint and see what's going on there. Yeah. So I think I just switched to my console, and I know the file is called a render, and it's the compatibility version. So yeah, I think it's the correct one. And I'll just set a breakpoint here. Yeah, let's see what's going on. Yeah, all right, so it stops here, but the type is H1, not what we are looking for. Deep, nope, nope. I think I have to keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Loading and
Oh,
lazy
yeah, I think
and page.
Should be this one, the page. So I think they need to patch the page here. Let me just step through the code. And oops, it just skipped the whole block. Why? Let's check.
So it's skipped.
Yeah, why is skipped? Type of type equal to function? Yes, all class component the function. So
they do set a flag after they patch everything, right?
Oh yeah, so there's another flag here. I think we can ignore the flag one first. Let's see, understand the if condition. So type of type equal to function. Yes, all class is a function. And if the function has a prototype, basically it's a class. I think that's their way to detect whether this type is a pure function or is a class component.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I think our page is definitely a class component. Type of type is function and it has prototype. So that must mean this one is set to true.
Who set it to true without calling it actually?
Actually, it's only set inside the code block.
But just now we all see that it's not called, but somehow it's true.
Not sure. Maybe let me just redo it again.
Let's
Maybe I missed out another page component. It's been called the second time. So let's go through this slowly.
Okay, Chen,
H1.
zoom in.
Yeah. Okay. Oops, sorry.
Mean the console.
Yeah. Can you see it now?
I think looks better now. Maybe even larger, slightly larger.
Yeah. How about this?
Okay. Looks good now.
Okay. Cool. So yeah. Nope. Is the D. Next one, lazy.
Lazy. Suspense.
App.
Okay.
We are close.
Fragment. Component. This is.
I'm not sure. Maybe, but it's definitely not a page. Lazy.
Lazy again. Oh, this one is already loaded because you see the loading right here. We're actually loading the page, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So this time definitely is the first time we see page.
Yes.
Oops.
Oh. So just now it's the suspense one, right?
Yeah, I think the suspense block and then the lazy and then finally it goes inside. Now we are landing on the page one.
Okay. Could it be set by other? Couldn't be, right? Because they only set these .patch lifestyles. For the page, it's definitely not set.
Yeah, it's definitely the first time we see the page. Yeah, it's quite strange why it's true. Maybe we see what's going on in this type.
So
let me just collapse all the things.
So there is no attribute called patch life cycles already. Because it's not there.
There's no patch life cycles, but it says it's true.
No. Does it check like some other stuff? Like
yeah, then there's no choice must be in this proto, right? So
I remember when I learned JavaScript, some old master tell me to always, like, if you want to check your own property, make sure you are checking the has own property, right? So there must be some other properties that it's actually looking at.
I see. Then let's look at the proto, because if it's not here, it should be here. So,
wait, what?
Yeah, I think
this is component, right?
So if you think backwards, it makes total sense now. Because you see just now when we go through this, you see a bunch of fragment, and then you see the component.
Yes.
And that component is this component, right?
The component is provided by Preact, right?
Yeah, but it's a bit weird that why you are really rendering that component. Have you ever done something like import component from React and then you render that component?
No way, right? There is no render function.
Uh, I'm not sure. I think there is a render function, by the way. So maybe we can try
Okay.
after this, you import a component from React and just try to render that component, see what will be rendered. So I think that's the, I think we definitely find a direct cause because the it's set. Of course, the page is not being patched, but the component or the base class page is trying to inheriting from is being patched already. And we have seen, based on our stack trace, the component is actually being rendered.
So whoever is setting this flag, we shouldn't set in the first place. Like, because if you're setting for the component, you're setting for everyone, right? Because it's on the prototype.
I think this could be a bit hard for us to visualize. Let me try to write this down. So assume you have a React component class. Yeah, and I have a page. And I'm extends from the React component, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oops, is that a typo?
Typo.
No, I just copy and paste. It's not defined. Try to do this again. Maybe I just call it a different name. Yeah, hopefully this time I just call it my component to avoid any naming conflicts.
Oh, because they're in the scope.
Is it because I'm in the debugger? I think so.
No.
Let me just quit the debugger and do this one again. Should be because I have a base component. Yeah, now it works.
Yeah, okay.
So what does the extends do? I think it was just before the day we have ES6, we are using function for everything, and everyone had to understand how the prototype inheritance works, right? So basically, when you extend a component, it literally means you will set the prototype of my component to be base component. But another thing is I have to make sure the constructor is pointing back correctly. So you have to set the constructor back to yourself. Yeah, that's how we are doing the class extension without the extend keyword. So go back to our source code. I think it makes total sense now because actually we are extends the component. That means, of course, the prototype of my component or page will be base component. So let's go back to our issue. I think now we kind of understand the issue better because it is actually in the inheritance chain. And oh, I think I made a mistake. I think we haven't used prototype for a long time. I think this is the confusing part of JavaScript is that this prototype means it's more like a prototype factory. When you create a new component from this my component, you will try to use that dot component to initiate a new object. But actually, there's a hidden one. It's not suggested to use. If you call the proto, you see, that's the hidden one. So the proto will pointing back to the base component. Yeah, I think that makes total sense. I think let's try to recap this again. So I'll set a stop point. Yeah, let's just stop at the component ones. So now we're at the component. We'll try to, of course, its function as prototype is not being patched. So just go inside and you do set this property.
Oh,
Yep. And let's just fast forward to the page. Oops, I think I will do this again. Oops.
component,
Yep, page. So
page.
you see, page is extending the component. That means that underscore proto is actually pointing to this component. And we have set it.
And the flag is true.
Yeah. I think that's the
Oh, so actually this type dot patch life cycles is not found on itself. So it
Yes.
looks up on its prototype chain and found it on a component.
Yeah, I think the tricky part of it's not so intuitive. It's kind of the detail is buried behind this extends keyword, because it's not so easy to think about what exactly is going on when you are using extends. So
So the
yeah,
solution for them is to only check their own property, right?
yeah, I think you are right. I think once we understand this, we can fix this right away, because the only reason this is not working is because you are yeah, it's just bad code, I think. You should just change to something like
So we
this.
make sure that this is its own
Step by
property,
yourself.
and then we check the value, right?
Let's have a try. Let's have a try. Yep.
Yay, nice.
Yeah, I think it's working, right?
Yeah, it's working. Shall we submit a patch?
Yeah, we can do that. But first, I have to understand why. Why you are rendering a component?
Yeah. Why? Why do they patch the lifecycle on a component?
Yeah, I think the only way to find out is go to the suspense code. Because I think the only difference here is the suspense. Unlikely to be lazy, so I just search
Oh
for
yeah, because when you render other stuff, they also patch on component, right? Do they?
no. I think
No, right? Only
the,
when you render suspense, right?
yeah. I think it's quite a self-explanatory. So you have a suspense. If you are suspending, they will create an element which is component but has no children. If it's not suspended, they will not render your callback, and they will render your children under the component.
Okay, so this time they're actually patching the component itself, and that
Yeah,
causes the problem.
the real component.
Okay.
I still have no idea why you are using that literal base component in a framework.
It's kind of like a side effect, unexpected side effect when you try to patch something for the component that everyone extends to, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Can they just use fragment? Should this get the job done?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think I feel changing here is too risky. I really don't understand why they choose to use this component. But changing here sounds like safer. I think that's what actually they intended, right? They want to
I believe that's what they intend to do.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting to find a bug. I think the lesson learned here is that although we are being so used to or being abused by using all the ES6 syntaxes, but under the hood, it's still this old prototype chain, and we have to understand it properly so that we can figure out what's going on eventually. And even in the framework code, they're still referring to all the prototypes.
Yeah, that's a very good lesson on prototype.
Yeah, I think that's this bug about. But do you still remember in the beginning I mentioned we found another bug this week?
Oh, another bug.
Yeah. So this one I won't go through the detail, but I just share this very briefly here. Let me ask you a question. You know the reference in React, right?
Yes.
So you can pass a function as a callback to the ref, and the ref will be called, right?
That's the older version, right?
Yeah, that's the older version. Now you can use ref, but alternatively, you can still pass a function.
Yeah.
So do you know when that callback will be called? When?
when you create element, immediately after you create element, before it's dumped to the screen.
Oh, that's different from React, right? So I checked on this actually, and from the docs, you see here, callback refs, and let me just try to find the line.
Access.
Where is it?
Before.
Yeah, here you go. React will call the ref callback with the DOM element when the component mounts, and call it now when it's on mounts.
Oh, so when it mounts, but guaranteed to be up to date before component did mount.
Yeah,
okay.
So that's another bug we found out, which we will not go through the detail here. But basically, we have some assumption that, when your ref callback is being called, the DOM element is already mounted, it's already on the screen. So we will do all the kind of DOM manipulations there. But however, this behavior is different in Preact. I think we need to be very careful.
Oh.
So they have no guarantee when your ref callback is being called, the DOM element is flushed onto the screen.
So it's likely that you're operating on an old element.
No, it's like you get that element, but it's not flushed into the DOM tree yet. You only get that DOM element in memory.
Oh. So like what I said earlier, it's after it's created, but it's before it's inserted to the DOM tree.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I believe when I was young and learning React, I run into this kind of issue. Like when I try to find parent, it's not there because it's not in the DOM tree. When I was using ref, maybe they're mimicking some old behavior on React. I don't know. I can look into it.
Yeah, I think that's also interesting. So second one, we don't know how many more bugs we are going to encounter down the road, but definitely quite interesting to solve them and to understand what's causing them.
Yeah, but for the behavior difference on this ref thing, right? Did they mention in the document?
Yes, there's a Preact issue.
Oh, it's a Preact issue.
It's not an issue. Someone raised an issue and they say basically it's by design, it's a feature.
It's not guaranteed.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed. They suggest you to run your logic in component to the mount. That one will be guaranteed. Interesting. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. I think that's just two interesting bugs I'd like to share with you and like to share with the audience. Yeah, I think that's all from me.
Cool. Well, thank you for the sharing. That was a very mind-blowing 20 minutes. Actually, we do have questions from the audience. It was a question from very early on. And if you, for those of you who are watching, if you have questions, please start asking now. So earlier on, Adrian asked, create element, component null, and create element child. Is it lazy evaluated or not?
Yeah, I think it's a bit hard to interpret the code. Create element now. Are you referring to my code or the way Preact works in general?
I think it was a question asked very, very earlier on, so I feel it was probably referring to Preact in general.
I see. I think it's a good question. I think you have to rewrite the code a bit so that you can understand this thing better. So let me try to do one example here. So let's say you have a page, and inside your page, you'll return some component. And imagine you have another app which will render the page. So it's a bit hard to think about this when you are writing JSX But if we do write something like create element, it will be a lot easier to think about that. So, and then let me just correct this. So you know, the React will walk through the tree layer by layer. So definitely the top layer will be your app. So when you are executing the render function of your app, all you are doing right now is actually only creating an element or vnode that matches your component type, that is page. But at this level yet, it will not execute any render function of your page. Only when you finish traversing this layer, you go to the next layer, you'll start to create that element for your component code. So it's not really lazy evaluated, but it depends on your order. So it's kind of, I would say it's shallow. It's shallow. It's only create one level at one time.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, cool. Any other questions from the audience? I think given how like mind killing this sharing is, I think maybe we need some time. So don't worry, we will have the video here, so you can always spend some time on your own and play around with this code. And you know how to find us. You can always like ask questions. If you're at Shopee, it's easy for you. If you are outside, you can always ask questions in the GitHub issue that we publish. Okay, so